I was scrolling through Spring 2024's list of anime the other week, and I couldn't help but notice that Sound Euphonium Season 3 was no longer than a month away. I've been meaning to watch the show for a while now, and I found myself in a pretty good spot to do so. So I gave it a watch, and here we are a week later. This video will be me just briefly gushing over it and giving my general thoughts on the show, including the sequel movie. Though the main focus will be around the character writing and the drama surrounding them, because I think that is its strongest points. The anime is pretty much a culmination of things I really enjoy in a show. Emotional drama, great character writing and storytelling in a real-world setting, and some damn good music. For now, we'll focus on the character writing, and who better to start with than the main character, Omae Kumiko. In the opening scene of the first episode, she is already established as someone who lacks the drive to achieve goals she deems unrealistic. She didn't think that their wind ensemble would qualify for nationals, and is therefore content with the result reflecting her expectations. Sitting next to her is a girl who feels the complete opposite. Filled with disappointment, she storms out of the concert hall, leaving a stumped Kumiko behind. In the following episode, Ketauji High School's concert band, which Kumiko finds herself to be a part of, is faced with a decision to make. Do they want their year to be dedicated to working hard to qualify for nationals, or do they want their rehearsals to be laid back for the sake of having a good time and making memories? When the first question was posed, half-raised hands slowly began to fill the room, as if their decision was tainted with uncertainty. Rina's hand stands tall among the rest, showing how much stronger her resolve is. And amidst all of this, Kumiko couldn't bring herself to raise her hand on either statements. Across the first season, we see Kumiko slowly get more invested being in the concert band. Perhaps in the beginning she was just slowly going with the flow, but along the way she found a genuine reason for her being where she is, and wanting to move further. Episode 12 is a pivotal moment for her character's growth in this regard. A flame lit inside her when she was straight up rejected in playing a section of the piece they were preparing for because her performance was simply not good enough. And it only stings even more since the first half of the episode highlights how much effort she's putting in. On her way home, the emotional weight of that unfortunate outcome had finally begun to sink. Caught up in that thought, she repeats the phrase, "I want to improve," because she realizes she likes playing the euphonium. Nothing hurts more than being denied that privilege. That, and well, what better reason could you really ask for? In episode 7 of season 1, we see a character who wasn't able to find that motivation, nor her reason to continue playing. During a rehearsal, Saito Oi was confronted on whether or not she could play her part by their competition. As she stares intently at her instrument, I imagine her thoughts going through all the possible outcomes of the answers she gives. Then, she says it.
私、部活やめます。
She cannot imagine herself putting in the effort everyone else is giving, as she is also preparing for her entrance exam. A bit of the decision to decline also stems from guilt about last year's situation, which I will not go into for now. As Haruka tries to stop her from leaving, we also get to see more of her character and her insecurities about being the club's leader. She carries the burden of not being able to perform her duties as club president, as well as how Asuka might have, who was heavily preferred by the group to take that position. When Asuka enters the conversation and asks Haruka why she didn't just refuse, much like she did, Haruka was left speechless. Even if the delivery of this exchange seems slightly overdramatic for some, the reasoning and intentions behind their words and actions feel so grounded to reality, in my opinion. There's probably a lot of Harukas out there in the real world, in the sense that you willingly put yourself in an unfavorable position due to group pressure or placing others' interests ahead of yours. You cannot expect every human to make rational decisions, even if one answer seems more logical than the other. Even though that was the case for Haruka, she had the courage to take that leadership position and perform well as one. In my eyes, she was beating herself too much over Aoi's departure. It was an instance that was out of her control, and she was blaming herself over it. But that's very characteristic of her as someone who's displayed low levels of self-confidence. Later on in the episode, Kaori, a friend and fellow club member, visits her home to check up on her, and they exchange a heartwarming conversation that allows Haruka to bounce back. Ever since then, she has slowly gained more confidence in herself and has been more assertive with her role as the club's president. Haruka may not be Asuka, but she doesn't need to be. This entire scenario makes her feel so human, and she is therefore one of my favorite characters in the show. My absolute favorite character, however, is Natsuki, and my reason for that is honestly pretty straightforward. At the beginning of the season, she had shown very little interest in practicing and playing the euphonium. Whenever she did appear in the practice sessions, her gaze always lied elsewhere, which gave her a very melancholic atmosphere. That was until she was given the slight push that she needed when Kumiko asked for them to try playing together as a group, which by the way is a really significant gesture from Kumiko. Ever since then, Natsuki's character felt more lively and she had been giving it her all to improve her playing, to the point of even taking the instrument back home with her. Even just this little moment of her practicing on her own shows a massive amount of growth in contrast to her earlier appearances. And the fact that Kumiko mistakes her playing for Asuka, their most skilled Euphonium player, speaks volumes to how much she had practiced. That's why it genuinely hurt my soul to watch when she did not pass the audition to be part of the competing lineup. Giving something your all and not getting the desired outcome is going to be a tough mental obstacle no matter what. But not only did she have the mental fortitude to overcome that adversity, she was worried about how Kumiko would take that situation too, as there might be some lingering guilt. So she took matters into her own hands and invited Kumiko out for a quick chat, setting it out straight and reassuring that there is no reason for her to feel bad about passing the audition. Even the way she handled and worded the conversation was done so kindly and down to earth that it makes it nigh impossible to not like this character. Kumiko was even moved to tears by her kindness, and looking back at her experience with a previous upperclassman in the same situation, it's understandable that she does. Any guilt that Kumiko had harbored within had been quickly dispelled by Natsuki. Natsuki is very understanding of the result as well, considering that she has only played the Euphonium for a year compared to Kumiko's 7 years of experience. She didn't necessarily expect to pass the audition, but she still put hours of work into improving her skill because she saw how everyone else was doing the same. But for the time being, she would continue to support Kumiko and the rest of the concert band on the sidelines. Natsuki is an example of a character who is just genuinely kind and understanding of those around her, and I admire her for having that level of virtue. Even her chill laid-back attitude makes her comfortable to be around. This wasn't the only instance of her being considerate across the series. There are multiple gestures that she does to others as well, and as much as I want to ramble about how she is best girl, there's still one more character I want to talk about before moving on to the next topic. Yuuko is another character who has grown on me over the course of the show. A fair amount of people really didn't like her throughout the first season, and especially after episode 10, when she, in front of the whole class, brought forth a rumor that Reina might have gotten special treatment in the audition, because Taki knew about her beforehand. It's even worse given the fact that Kaori told her not to spread that rumor any further and to just focus on the competition. But Yuuko is not deliberately trying to bring down Reina. Her intention is to make sure Kaori is getting a proper assessment. The previous year she didn't get to play the solo part because the system then was based on seniority. So even though Kaori played better than her upperclassmen, she had no chance of getting the part. And now that she is in her 3rd year, it is her final shot to do so. Yuuko admires her to a fault and is willing to do anything for Kaori to finally get her chance to shine, because she has seen how dedicated and skillful Kaori is over the past year. I agree that Yuuko could have handled the situation better and have gone for an approach that didn't cause such conflict, but she's straightforward and likes to speak her mind. Ultimately, I believe her intentions were not malicious. She even acknowledges the fact that Reina plays the solo better when she hears her practicing. Despite that, she still wants Kaori to play the solo, and I honestly don't blame her for it. This was just a very unfortunate situation with no real person to blame. And as painful as it is, Kaori got the short end of the stick. However, Yuuko confronting Taki about this situation results in a chance for second auditions to those who want. When he asks the band who would like their audition redone, Kaori stands up and raises her hand without hesitation. I would say Kaori wants the solo a tad bit more than Reina, but much like how Yuuko admires her to a fault, Kaori is selfless to a fault. If it had not been for Yuuko's interference, there is a chance that she would regret not holding her ground when it really mattered to her. It's quite apparent how much Kaori mattered to Yuuko, that when Reina still ended up getting the solo part on the re-audition, she wept her heart out. At this moment, I couldn't help but feel bad for her too. This is just one instance of character drama that's present in the show, but every one of these arcs are so well done, and I think that's a result of how well the production team was able to flesh out the characters involved in the drama, doing so not just through well-written dialogue, but through body language as well. This would be the influence of series production director Yamada Naoko. Prior to Hibike, the only works I've seen from her with a prominent role are K-On!, which she worked as the director, and A Silent Voice, which she storyboarded and directed. If you've seen those as well, you'll immediately notice her distinct directorial style. One aspect of such is her use of leg shots and how dynamic they all seem to be. This philosophy of hers stems from the notion that a character's personality and current emotion can be expressed by the way they move their legs. It's quite a roundabout way to express a character's feelings, but it's pretty effective. And I'm also always for creative and unique methods for conveying simple ideas. She seems to know just the right moments to use those shots too. Body language is a form of communication after all. Not everything can be relayed through words, and Yamada's style to highlight those subtle movements adds another level of depth to those characters. Another thing I want to quickly mention is Kumiko's voice actress, Kurosawa Tomoyo. Kumiko's character is a bit doubtful and frankly can be a bit silly, but when she finds herself in situations that carry a lot of emotional weight, her VA absolutely delivers. My favorite example of this would be this scene from Season 2, Episode 10.
私が出たいんです。そんな子供みたいなこと言って子供で何が悪いんです。先輩こそなんで大人ぶるんですか。全部わかってるみたいに振る舞って自分だけが特別だと思い込んで、先輩だってただの高校生なのに、こんなののどこがベストなんですか。
Something about her performance as Kumiko really brings the character to life. Now that I have mentioned Season 2, I want to say that I think it's a tad bit better when it comes to showcasing character development and drama compared to Season 1. I want to bring up Season 2's Episode 4 in this case. Some people consider the conflict that's centered around this episode to be overly dramatic, but in my opinion, the problem in how it was handled was pretty human at its core. Mizore and Nozomi are the main interests here, and it's been hinted in the past few episodes that there might be some complicated backstory between these two, though we never got the full picture until Episode 4. To keep it as short and simple as I can, Mizore joined the Wind Ensemble because Nozomi asked her if she wanted to. She accepted and really enjoyed her time spent there. Nozomi being there with her is a large part of that. But one day, Nozomi left without her knowing. That's the backstory. The problem lies with how Mizore took this situation. She really treasured Nozomi as a friend, as she was the only one she had. When she left uninformed, Mizore saw that as Nozomi abandoning her, and now has trouble seeing the face she bears. From reading discussions around this episode, what people critique the most is how easily this could have been avoided. Why didn't Nozomi just tell her she was leaving? But human relationships are complex, and our opinions of the matter can be a hindsight. It's the show's job to lay down the foundation we need of the characters to understand their motives and actions, and it's our role as the viewers to piece the information together. Why Nozomi didn't inform Mizore of her leaving is because she didn't want her to quit either. She sees how much she enjoys playing the oboe, and made an assumption that Mizore would quit too if she told her about it. Seeing Mizore's character, that assumption is reasonable enough. She seems quite dependent on Nozomi and would have likely followed her if she knew about her departure. In her mind, leaving her without telling would have been for the better. Now Mizore's perception of this situation is tainted by her troubled mind. It's safe to say that she has low self-esteem, and because of that, she assumes that she was never important to Nozomi when she left her on her own. This is more apparent when Yuuko comes in to confront her later on and says that she is being kind to her out of pity. Now that line really hurts, because Yuuko genuinely wants to be friends with Nozomi and treasures what they have together. There are people out there that would go through the same mental process as Nozomi, and that makes this whole situation feel so raw and real. I'm certainly a fan of the drama genre, but I am a bit picky when it comes to its execution. I don't like it when conflict between characters seems forced or poorly written. But in my eyes, this is simply not the case here. The relationship between Mizore and Nozomi is further explored in the movie Liz and the Bluebird, but I think that deserves a video of its own. I think this is a good time to mention how the show develops the side characters just as well as the main character. Even though Kumiko is the main figure, a decent amount of the anime focuses on the concert band as a whole and the complex relationships each character has with one another. We just experience most of it through the eyes of Kumiko. Then there was the movie. I'll try to keep this section short too, but it pains me to say this because of how much I love the series. The movie wasn't really that good, at least compared to Season 1 and 2. The reason for that is pretty clear. The decision to condense the original work's story never usually ends well, and the film suffers from those consequences. The first year of the show spanned across 2 seasons, while a great deal of the second year was condensed to a runtime amounting to just 5 episodes. This results in the new characters seeming shallow and underdeveloped. It also makes it more difficult to sympathize or form any sort of attachment with them. The drama, storytelling, and character writing is why I enjoy this series so much. It's a shame for it to be so lackluster as a result of shortening the second year arc. I'm also a bit sad that this is all we get with Yuuko and Natsuki as the club's president and vice president, because their chemistry deserves more screen time, especially after seeing how much they've grown the past 2 seasons. Season 3 is just around the corner, and hopefully it won't have the same problem, given that there's more runtime for the new characters to develop. I don't expect it to be as enjoyable as Season 1 or 2, but I sure hope it proves me wrong. It's the anime I'm looking forward to the most next season, so I can't wait to experience a new plethora of situations.